Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we have election data for this November's elections out of Virginia as well as Pennsylvania. Virginia, you've got the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, the attorney general's race, and you also have some down ballot state legislative stuff. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, you've got some state court races. Didn't go too well for Republicans in Wisconsin earlier this year, although unique circumstances. And again, it was a nonpartisan race. Technically, the Democrats spent their money more efficiently. The electorate that showed up was like Harris +6, Harris +7. They won by 10, but it was also a spring election. And I don't think that we should look at that and say, okay, that means that this year's elections, when they're going to be, more publicized in a place like Virginia where people are used to turning out in these odd number years for elections, it's not going to be the same thing. Meanwhile, what we're seeing here is very good for Republicans, and it's not so good for Democrats. Is this the Charlie Kirk effect? It very may well be. You look at what happened in Minnesota this past Tuesday. That was an election Democrats probably you would anticipate would have overperformed by 20 points, just based on where the election was taking place and how these special elections have gone, plus the sympathy vote factor. But Republicans, they didn't underperform by 10 points even. They actually overperformed by 5 points, and people were saying, why exactly is that something to note? It wasn't much of an overperformance. But the fact that they overperformed at all, because if you would have asked me in that election how many points would the overperformance be, I'd be like, yeah, Democrats probably overperformed by 20. But no, Republicans overperformed by 5, and I think that the Charlie Kirk effect may be taking place, where people see what's going on, Republicans understand what they're up against, and they're actually going to partake in the political system, which is exactly something that Charlie Kirk wanted and stressed for Republicans to do. He would always wear those vote early t-shirts, making sure that people bank their votes. And what are we seeing here in Virginia? Which again, Republicans are not the favorites, and I'm not saying they're going to win, and I'm not saying that this is indicative of the entire process, but Republican areas are showing up in very high numbers. And this is in comparison to 2024, because the previous cycle, we would do percentage of the previous election, and Republicans already were doing very well in certain areas. Now they're doing even better, and Democrats are doing even weaker than day one 2024. I think that Dinwiddie, at the end of the day, I could be wrong, but it was on track to actually go over 100% of day one of 2024. That's presidential turnout in a Trump plus 23 area. We're going to cover this, but really quickly, guys, got to tell you guys about my friends over at Chalk. Our country just witnessed Donald Trump overcome political persecution, an assassination attempt, and the entire deep state to retake the presidency with a historic victory. And one secret ingredient allowed him to do it, and it's called testosterone. And what most people don't realize is that testosterone makes men willing and eager to take on challenges. Sadly, too many men have lost their fight, and that's exactly how the globalists want it. They want us weak, out of shape, and full of estrogen and microplastics with low T, which is why we're excited to partner with Chalk. They offer a whole line of products formulated to increase your energy, focus, detoxify your body, and clinically studied boost testosterone. Ingredients in the Chalk Male Vitality Stack have been clinically studied to boost free testosterone in 87% in just 21 days. Unlike with gimmicky vegetable pills or powder, you will feel the difference, and they have the clinical studies to back it up. And right now you can get 25% off your Chalk subscription, not just one time, but for life. So go to chalk.com, spelled CHOQ.com, and use the promo code REDEAGLE. That's 25% off any subscription for life, and you can cancel it at any time. All right, so we have election data out of Virginia, and this is huge. Dinwiddie, Goochland, and Hanover, areas that voted for Trump by a decent margin, they're showing very high percentages of 2024 turnout. Meanwhile, the Democrat strongholds that had early voting today, Charlottesville. A lot of people kind of have this misconception that Charlottesville is like a far-right area because of the 2017 stuff. It's a very liberal college town that has very high levels of political participation, but even then, they're only getting 42% of the vote in a Harris plus 68 compared to the first day of 2024. So already, that's not a very good showing. Now, it could change. It's just one day. It could be an anomaly. Maybe you could say the Charlie Kirk effect wears off. I don't think it's going to wear off completely. I will say that. People are not just going to forget about this for a very, very long time, if ever. But when it comes down to the immediate impacts of the electorate, right now it seems like Republicans might be a little bit more energized. Will they stay energized, and how long will they stay energized? That's another question, but they should. Now, Arlington, Virginia, Harris plus 58. That's Northern Virginia, a lot of government employees, high political participation usually, and not a very Trump-friendly area. However, 32% turnout of day one of 2024. And then you have Petersburg, Virginia, which, again, Harris plus 73, that's one of the weaker showings. So the stronger showings are in the Trump areas. The weaker showings are in the Harris areas. And you look at Loudoun County, I believe, was at 40-some%. Loudoun County is a blue county, although Donald Trump did much better there. Maybe it's turning a bit of a corner. You had that incident happen where there was some assault committed in a bathroom by a transgender individual that helped shape the political climate for 2021. So again, it is a place that could be turning a corner. We will see, especially with all the recent developments from violence related to that community taking place. But looking at what we see here, I mean, more data, Norfolk City, they're not doing so hot. And the Trump areas are doing pretty well. Now, it's just one day. That's true, but it's not just Virginia, and it's not just the special election in Minnesota, because I always say special elections, they don't really have the biggest impact. They can sometimes show energy level, but Democrats are that party that shows up in every single election more so than the Republicans, mostly older people who watch a lot of mainstream media. Those are the type of people to show up for those sort of things. We're trying to change that because we want to win every election, but still, where it actually, I would say, counts the most, which all elections count, but if it's a statewide race, like a midterm year or a presidential year, or in the case of like Virginia or New Jersey, it would be an odd number year, well, then you kind of start to see Republicans show up a little bit more. But Pennsylvania, I know it's early, but 6 weeks before Election Day, the early vote ballot requests, and keep in mind they go up, and keep in mind Democrats had a massive lead in 2024 at the end of it. They have a lead now, but that's to be expected because that's typically how Democrats vote. And you got to compare it to 2023, where Democrats won that election that took place there by like 6-7 points. Well, now Republicans are performing on net like 12% better in the early vote. Compared to 2023. Whether you want to argue if that's like all cannibalization or whatever, at least they're banking the votes, which is important. It takes these people out of the equation. Now you know how to make sure these people show up if they're requesting an early ballot, and you can find and target voters that are not requesting an early ballot more efficiently, and now you have more registrations to work with, and you're seeing more participation. Now, I think that you could have requested ballots before this incident took place. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, I don't know if that's impacting these numbers a whole lot, but still it shows that Republicans in Pennsylvania are getting their act together, which is huge. Now, I did want to talk about Virginia because I think that this is something that is important here. With this governor's race, because you will look at the polling and it is not looking too good for Winsome Sears. Now, again, you look at and you compare polls that were at this stage in the game in past elections, there have been overperformances for sure. Spanberger is not polling at 50% in every single poll. She is polling at 50% or more in some polls. That is true, but again, the average is roughly like 48.8 to 41.7. And if Republicans can have a very good showing in the early vote, maybe they could be competitive and it could save some down ballot races like the Attorney General's race. And again, margins do matter. In my opinion, this is not an election that Republicans really should go into election night expecting to win. But if they overperform, that may be bad news for the Democrats because the fundamentals are very different than 2021. Republicans won Virginia in 2021, we know. We could just go back one election here on Wikipedia, and you could see it. Glenn Youngkin, he defeated Terry McAuliffe by 2 points in a state that Donald Trump fell short in the previous election cycle by over 10 points. So that was a 12-point shift to the right or so. But still, Virginia, it voted for Kamala Harris. It voted for Kamala Harris by 5.8 percentage points. It's still a blue state. It's not that much red or down ballot. And even though Winsome Sears' campaign has improved, I don't believe that she's a very strong candidate. Glenn Youngkin was far stronger in 2021 than she is now, and she's not really fundraising a lot of money, which again, the fundraising gap being wider in favor of the Democrats is going to help Spanberger, who again, I believe is stronger than McAuliffe. She's a lot of connections, CIA type of person, relates to the Nova area based on her bureaucratic history, and she doesn't really have any direct baggage the way McAuliffe did, even though if you dig deep enough, but if you're not really on the airwaves and you're not able to compete in the spending, and Democrats are already the high propensity party, then I think Democrats would just naturally be favored in a Harris +6 state. Now, again, the political climate and the top issues are not nearly as favorable to Sears as they were to Youngkin. Maybe the Charlie Kirk effect can change that, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to compensate for, the fact that you had all this anti-lockdown energy, the education issue, the Loudoun County incident, which I think is still relevant to a certain degree because Sears has been attacking Spanberger on that sort of issue. But at the end of the day, if you're not on the airwaves, if you're not being able to broadcast your message, it's not going to matter nearly as much. New Jersey, I think, is more winnable, but we don't really have a lot of early data, although some polls have tightened. And we'll talk about Cheryl and her awful response to the Kirk shooting at some point. But regardless, you also have the establishment in Northern Virginia upset at Donald Trump. They're very energized. And again, I think that's good for the rest of the country, but it'll hurt electorally in Virginia in an odd number year that has Donald Trump in the White House. So I will say this, if this race is within 7 points, I think Democrats are in a whole lot of trouble heading into 2026 if you don't have like a massive change in the political climate. Because if it's single digits already, you should make the case that if there's really a blue wave, this is an election that you have a strong, well-funded Democrat against a relatively weak Republican in the state who is outspending their opponent. And if you don't manage to significantly outrun Kamala Harris, I think that it shows that a lot of people are fed up and Democrats are going to be in a whole lot of trouble because there's a lot of factors here that are benefiting Democrats in this race. And if they can't capitalize, and they may fall short in the attorney general's race, if the governorship shows signs of tightening, if this early vote data, continues to come in, again, that is a moral victory, and it should make voting more important to people regardless of where they live. So I tell people you can get out to vote in Virginia, do it now. You can get out to vote in New Jersey at some point in the near future. I don't know the exact date, but New Jersey and Virginia, those are two important elections, and Pennsylvania, because those state court races do have a lot of pull and impact. And if you want to check, and an effective check on Josh Shapiro, you need to show up and vote for those things and don't let the Democrats completely dominate the narrative. Again, this is about humiliation. A lot of these elections are just proxy cultural battles between us and the opposition, and the way the opposition has been acting, especially in light of this Charlie Kirk horrific assassination. We cannot let these people win anything. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.